Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about Tom Fazio. Now, Tom Fazio didn't just build golf courses, right? He literally sculpted them. He's a true visionary who absolutely shaped the modern era of golf architecture. I really want you to think of him not just as a builder or, an engineer, but as a master artist. Only instead of using a canvas and oil paints, his medium was the earth itself, and he painted with fairways. Okay, let's dive into this. The best golf course is one that looks like it has always belonged there. Those poetic words instantly capture Fazio's entire philosophy. He wasn't interested in just forcing a golf course onto a landscape. No, he wanted to seamlessly blend strategy with nature. He wanted his architecture to essentially disappear into the environment, looking exactly as if it had literally always been there. Now, let's ground all this lofty artistic talk with some hard numbers. Born in 1945 in Pennsylvania, Fazio has designed or renovated more than 200 courses worldwide across 5 decades. Looking at the scorecard of his career, he's achieved undeniable heavyweight status. Top marks in artistic vision, strategic design, environmental integration, championship legacy, and lasting influence. He is, for sure, a defining architect of modern golf. Let's move to and see how this builds. Fazio's evolution into this dominant force is just a fascinating journey. By the 1960s, he was already rolling up his sleeves, apprenticing with his renowned uncle, George Fazio. He absorbed everything. And by the 1970s, he launched his own independent career. Throughout the 80s and 90s, he firmly established himself as one of America's absolute premier golf course architects. And from the 90s all the way to the present day, he's been busy designing the world's highest-ranked courses. It's just a steady, unstoppable rise over 5 incredible decades. So, where did all this begin? Golf's family business, inheriting curiosity. Unlike a lot of famous designers who emerged through some dramatic career reinvention, Fazio was actually born into golf's family business. But he didn't reinvent himself. He inherited a deep, relentless curiosity from his uncle George. For the young Tom Fazio, dinner table discussions were about solving architectural puzzles. Construction sites literally became his classrooms, and the fairways, they became his laboratories. Which brings us to routing, the art and process of determining the layout, sequence, and flow of golf holes across a specific natural landscape. Long before he officially designed his first hole, Fazio was mastering this core concept. Young Tom was learning to truly read a piece of land. He'd watch how fairways naturally wanted to follow the existing contours of the earth, observing that delicate dance between the terrain and the game itself. I want you to ask yourself, why here? Put yourself in the mind of the young Tom Fazio for a moment. He's walking these fairways, constantly analyzing. He would look at a piece of land and ask, why here? Why did this specific green accept one approach shot beautifully, but completely reject another? And then he'd ask, why not there? How would this entire hole play if the green sat just 20 yards farther to the left? He was obsessed with these spatial relationships. These continuous, driving questions replaced basic assumptions and really fueled his profound understanding of spatial design. Every single walk across a golf course was an intense exercise in observation. So the crucial point is, this led him to ask, could a bunker protect strategy rather than just punish mistakes? This specific, inquisitive mindset taught Fazio a massive lesson early on. It taught him that great architecture doesn't just demand creativity. It demands immense patience, deep humility, and above all, a willingness to just quiet down and listen to what the land itself actually wants to become. Moving on to designing with nature, the Fazio philosophy. As he stepped out of his uncle's shadow to launch his independent career, Fazio had to ask how a course could feel both timeless and completely modern. He wanted to establish his own unique identity, stepping way beyond his family name. He wanted to prove that he could create experiences, not just playing fields. And this is exactly where his designing with nature philosophy truly took root. To truly understand his impact, we have to contrast the old way versus the Fazio way. The old approach, it often relied on intimidating hazards, massive earth-moving construction, and forcing a vision onto rough terrain just for visual shock value. But the Fazio way, it's all about quiet brilliance. It's about subtle refinement and a natural flow that blends perfectly into the environment. While others forced their vision and shouted with their designs, Fazio's work rarely shouts. It quietly reveals its brilliance to the golfer, one hole at a time. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the architect's signature. If you want to spot Fazio's fingerprints the next time you watch a tournament or play around, look for these specific elements. You'll see fairways flowing naturally through the landscape. You'll see dramatic beauty, but paired with strategic design. You'll find a course that somehow challenges the touring pros while remaining totally enjoyable for everyday golfers. You'll see greens inviting thoughtful angles. And above all, you'll see that the land remains the undisputed star. So, how does he actually achieve this? Well, it breaks down into 3 steps. First, he observes the untouched ridges and property, figuring out which ones were sculpted by nature far better than a bulldozer ever could. Second, he envisions the golfer's sensory experience. He imagines how a mountain valley will look painted in brilliant autumn colors, or how the morning sunlight will filter through towering pines right onto the first tee. And third, he balances those aesthetics with hidden strategic decisions. He approaches every single landscape exactly like a painter discovering the masterpiece already hiding within the canvas. This sensory approach is anchored by a simple belief. A golf course should inspire golfers the moment they step onto the first tee and reward them every step of the journey. Because of this philosophy, it ensures that every widened fairway or beautifully framed bunker isn't just there for decoration. Nothing exists purely to look pretty. Everything exists entirely to serve the game of golf and the strategy of the player. 200 plus. Now that is a staggering number. That's how many courses Tom Fazio has designed or renovated worldwide. And what's amazing about this number is that it absolutely proves his land-first principles work anywhere. Because he doesn't force a signature style, his philosophy works perfectly across mountains, coastal cliffs, and desert canyons. Every site gets its own unique solution. And this brilliantly illustrates that incredible flexibility. Look at these modern masterpieces: Shadow Creek, Wadehampton, Victoria National, Pinehurst No. 8, Karsten Creek. These are instantly recognizable destinations that host major championships and Ryder Cup hopefuls. Yet, none of them look alike. They each belong perfectly and entirely to their specific, distinct surroundings. We are really talking about a modern golf legacy here. Fazio arrived at the absolute perfect time. As technology evolved, players were hitting the ball farther, and television was suddenly broadcasting spectacular golf courses into millions of living rooms. The game desperately needed an architect who could build courses that satisfied the intense demands of modern championship golf, while remaining totally memorable and welcoming for the everyday player. Ultimately, creating places that golfers remember long after they've forgotten their scorecards. That is Tom Fazio's true gift. It's not about moving earth. It's about earning an emotional response through thoughtful design. It's about that brief moment when you stand by a crystal-clear lake reflecting the sky beside an emerald fairway, and suddenly the score just doesn't matter. The mechanics of your swing don't matter. Even the fierce competition simply fades away. You just look around and smile. Which leaves us with a profound new appreciation for the hidden artistry of golf architecture and this final lingering question. The next time you step onto a beautiful fairway, will you remember the score or will you remember the scenery?